Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this Friday morning tour of our exhibition, Rania Matar, on either side of the window, portraits during COVID-19. I'm going to wait one more minute to allow people to join our live stream, and then we'll get started. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone, and good morning. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to be giving a virtual tour of our exhibition, Rania Matar, on either side of the window, portraits during COVID-19. This program is supported in part by Art Bridges. My name is Gisela Carbonell. I am the curator at the Cornell Fine Arts Museum here at Rollins College. And it is my pleasure this morning to tell you a little bit about how this exhibition came to be, and what are some of the main themes that are addressed in the works included in the exhibition. This exhibition includes 27 photographs by Lebanese-American photographer Rania Matar, and these were all created last year in 2020 during the pandemic. So I'll share with you about how this exhibition was organized in the context of the pandemic and why it is on view in our museum. I'll show you a few highlights, but I'm not going to talk about each and every one of the works because, of course, we would like you to come and see it. Some of the works in this exhibition speak to some of the themes that we are still dealing with today. Issues of isolation and connection, but they also speak to beauty and connection, which is so important for Rania Matar. Rania Matar was born and raised in Lebanon. She moved to the US in 1984. She's trained as an architect and also as a photographer, and we'll see how this background in architecture comes through in the works that we're going to look at today. She is the 2018 Guggenheim Fellow, and her work focuses and has focused consistently on capturing girls and young women in the US and around the world, in the Middle East, particularly when she travels there to shoot. You can type in a comment, let me know if you can see me and hear me, and I'll put up the images again so we can continue. Okay, thank you, Coralie. It's good to see you here. Okay. Let me share my images again. Okay, so I hope you're able to see my images again. So I hope, I don't know how much we lost here with reloading in terms of what we were talking about, but I was telling you about how the project started and how Rania posted some of the images that she had been taken online on Instagram, and that encouraged other people, some people who didn't know her personally, to reach out to her and ask if they could come and take if she could come and take a portrait of them. And so I wanted to highlight here the image that we chose as the main image for the exhibition that we placed on the title wall. This is an image of Mia and June. I believe that they are dancers, if I remember correctly. That's what Rania had shared with me, and unable to perform, of course, during the time of the quarantine, were at home. And so this image is aesthetically beautiful. If you look at the composition and the striking contrast of color, it's very intriguing also as they put their hands against the glass. And you can see the reflections if you look on the right, the reflection of the hands there. So there is this affirmation of that barrier that divides the photographer, the space of the photographer, and the space of the sitters, that is made even more evident by their placement of the hands there and the direct gaze of the couple as they look at Rania. So I'm showing you here on the left a gallery view where the photo on the right is displayed, just to give you a sense for location and placement of this particular image. One thing that I talked about with Rania when we were looking at selections was how many people and how many of us and how many, perhaps a few who are joining us today, had, of course, milestones during this year, important dates or occasions that had to be postponed or shifted or that changed because of the circumstances of the pandemic. And of course, it has been a year, so all of our birthdays, our relatives' birthdays, and Mother's Day and Father's Day and commencement, all of it had to change. And so here's an example of a woman whose life plans changed also with the pandemic. This is Juliana from Lynn, Massachusetts. And Juliana was engaged and her wedding was scheduled for April of last year. And of course, it had to be postponed because of the pandemic. But one of the beautiful things I think about this image and about her story, as Rania conveyed it to me, was that she wanted to have her picture taken wearing her wedding dress, but she did not want her fiancé to see it until the day of the wedding. So Rania worked with them to create poses in a way that the couple could be photographed and she could wear her dress, but she would stand behind him so that he didn't see the dress until the wedding, which eventually happened during Labor Day. And one of the things that I find so intriguing and interesting about this image, even if you don't know her backstory and all these details that Rania has shared, there's something poetic about this photograph. There's also something mysterious. We don't see the woman's face. We see her back, the back of her beautiful dress with her arm there resting. You can see a little bit of her hand. But there's this striking play with shadows and reflections and the darkness, of course, the dark interior that sort of blurs everything that is in her face. So we are left to look at her and look at the dress and look at her body and try to imagine the story for this person. And this is something that was important for Rania as we worked on the exhibition together. She conveyed to me that she would prefer not to have all of these details and stories on the labels next to the photographs in the galleries, like we do sometimes with other exhibitions. Her intent is for us as visitors, when we go to see the exhibition, to look at these images and find ourselves in them and find ways for us to relate to them and think about the possible stories of what could be portrayed here as we look at the visual elements that are included. Also fascinating to me is that an image like this one captures what is very emblematic and characteristic in Rania's work, and it's that shifts in a woman's life, is passing from one stage to another, perhaps from a young single woman in this case to a more mature woman who is about to get married and have this life event that is important to her. And I love this contrast of the very rich blue of the house, of the building, and the contrast with the dark interior, and of course the shining white dress. And then if you look at the top of the window, the reflection of nature that is on the glass window at the top, right? So you can see some of the context outside. And that's something that comes through in many of the images in this exhibition, is this play with indoor and outdoor that Rania does so well. So as we look at some of the other examples, the stories are really fascinating. This is Tracy from Worcester, Massachusetts. And Rania talks about how she had met Tracy, who had just opened a store right as the pandemic was starting. So she had her own business, a bookstore and a place that was just starting, and of course was affected by the pandemic. What is interesting to me here with this particular image is that, to me, this one is a lesson in kindness. Rania talks about how, as they were about to wrap up the photo shoot, Tracy asked her if she could take one more picture. And she held these rocks to the glass of the window with the words, smile and blessings. And that was the last one that Rania took during the photo shoot, and it's the one that was chosen for the exhibition here. And I want to read to you a quote that from Rania about this particular one. She says, Rania says, it was a beautiful moment and so appropriate for the strange and unsettling times we were all living in. Tracy had also left a little pink mesh bag hanging on her front door handle with beautiful crystals and rocks with messages like thank you and courage. End of quote. And so for me, it's very inspiring to see someone who is going through hardship, whose business has been affected by this pandemic, and still engaging, in this case, with the photographer to mark this moment, and also offering the photographer and all of us who are looking at the images these positive words of encouragement like blessings and smile. This is Marie from Cambridge. Marie is a friend of Rania's. They had not seen each other in a while. They have not been able to be together in a while. And Marie had seen some of the images that Rania had been posting on Instagram. So think about this, the impact of this project as a community project. And Marie then reached out to Rania and said, I would love to be in one of your photographs. And so they plan a time and date to go capture Marie's portrait. And so here, this composition is absolutely amazing. And when you come visit the exhibition, I think you'll agree with me that this is one of those images that is almost perfect in balance and composition and color contrast, and how Rania is using reflection here. And of course, Marie's beautiful pose as she is there with her hand on her shoulder and kind of looking up. And if you see, of course, the bright, rich red of the leaves is echoed by the dark, rich red of Marie's clothing. And there is almost a blurring of boundaries here between indoor and outdoor. It takes a minute, right, to look at the image and figure out which parts are indoor and which parts are outdoor. And it's captivating, right? There's almost a play there with perception, also, which we could unpack also as a metaphor for what the image represents in terms of the circumstances. Rania said about this particular photograph, we had to connect through the barrier, but I love how the outside was reflected into the window. If I moved a bit one way or the other, I would see my own reflection on her, connecting us metaphorically. It felt as if she was outside and inside at the same time. Everything felt as a blur in those early days. And this is a quote that Rania gave in a recent interview talking about this particular photograph. And I love that metaphor of what was happening at that time, the blurring perhaps of circumstances. This one is Loreta and Camilla. And this is an image that can be read in so many different ways. The first time I saw it, and I was having a conversation with Rania, and she was saying, they could be sisters. It could be that they are posing in a kind of playful way. We see here the doors open with that frame dividing the scene here with an older woman and a young girl there on the right. And Rania talks a little bit about the backstory for this particular image. So as I said, you can read it as maybe they are sisters who are in quarantine together with their parents, or maybe it's a young mother with her daughter. The case is here that the young woman on the left is an au pair who had come from Germany to work with this family right before the pandemic started. And so when Rania shared this, I was thinking about how she must have experienced this coming from a different country, leaving her family behind, her and her friends, to come to Massachusetts to work with this family, and having to be in quarantine and not being able to go out or travel or see her own family. And here she is creating connections and bonds with a new family. So looking at this image and thinking about some of these things, I think this is captures a moment that perhaps encourages and invites us to put ourselves in other shoes, right? And it's a reminder of how we all experience this differently. And we all have stories to tell about how that experience felt at the time, and how do we see it now looking back. And I just have a couple of more to share with you before we go to questions and comments. This one here is a family of women, this mother with her three daughters, Minty, Kyla, Leah, and Lila from Cambridge. Rania met them and connected with them through a mutual friend and went to photograph them. And if you see the image, the composition here is really interesting. On the right, if you think about it, it's almost like a diptych. The panel on the right, or the right side of the composition, we see a young girl. She's 9 years old, behind this closed window with her hands on her head, resting on her hands, kind of looking out. And then on the left, the window is open, and we see the mother and two teenage daughters looking out directly at the photographer and looking out directly at us. And again, you see here that theme that is characteristic of Rania's work, this focus on different stages of a woman's life, and also that moment of transition between young preteen girls and then adulthood, all different stages of life here. And that's something that I like about the selection of images in this exhibition, and is that we selected works that capture people in different stages of their life and from different backgrounds. One thing that Rania shared recently about her process, and I remember her telling me a little bit about this as we were having conversations looking at the selections, possible selections for the show, is that as time progressed, people who wanted to be photographed were not necessarily wanting to be captured. Perhaps some people in the early stages of the project were captured wearing, what they were wearing that day, or were a little bit more casual. But as time progressed and Rania started working and including other people in the shoots, some of them wanted to maybe dress up or wanted to pose in a certain way. They wanted to be participants in the decision-making process. And all of this was spontaneous and happened in the moment. So Rania didn't necessarily have a preconceived plan of what she wanted the composition to look like, the finished photograph to look like. This all happened organically in the process when she went to visit those that she was photographing. And so here, this is a beautiful example to illustrate that point. So this is a young woman who was posing, and there were these flowers right in front of this door, these beautiful bright pink flowers. And Rania talks about how she asked her, this is Austin from Boston, if she had something pink that she could wear. And she went and changed. And of course, because this is the way things happened, she had this pink dress that is exactly the same color and tone as the flowers outside. So it matched perfectly. And so in an image like this one, you know, the flowers are so prominent. Nature is very prominent here, right in front of the glass and right in front of the young woman. But you see the reflection of these yellow trees in the background. So these would be behind where Rania was standing to take this picture, and they are over the young woman's face. So again, this air of mystery, of something that is not completely revealed in some of these images. And of course, we can unpack all the metaphors, right, about the relationship with nature and the metaphoric connections with the natural world as well. So the last two that I want to highlight for you and the tour there are the ones that appear on the right, to the right of the doorway, if you look at the photograph on the left in our gallery. And so we were talking about how some of the sitters wanted to be active participants in choosing what to wear and how to post. And I think this is a great example of that. This is Marina on the left and Cyrus on the right. And these are two very strong images that show, or at least convey to me, and I would love to hear what you think, a sense of confidence and strength, and at the same time, great vulnerability. If you look at Marina on the left, she's wearing this deep red dress. She's wearing sunglasses and red lipstick. Her pose is reclining here on the window frame. But you see these architectural details that Rania pays so much attention to. If you look at the lower part of the photograph, you see what looks like the top of an iron bench. That contrasts, of course, with the geometry and rigidity of the brick wall. And then at the top, you see again those the reflection of the trees outside on those glass panes above where Marina is reclining. And then because of the light, we don't really see her, the inside of her home. We don't see her context. We see her, right? We see her. And then in the case of Cyrus here on the right, this is another beautiful image that shows, again, that connection with the photographer, with, of course, some elements here of performing for the camera. And Cyrus is a performer. And so Rania shared with us that here she made a comment about the red flowers. And so Cyrus was interested in that connection with the bright red. So they went to change and put on this bright red piece of clothing. And if you look at the photograph of Cyrus, there's so much happening here with the reflections and the trees outside and the flowers. And of course, the trees almost center them in the composition, highlighting their presence. But if you look closely, if you look at the left part, at the left edge of this composition, you see these what look like spheres in different bright colors that to me convey a sense of perhaps celebratory or festive. It's an image that has a lot to unpack. And Cyrus wrote on Instagram about his experience being photographed by Rania and about this image. And I want to share that quote with you. Cyrus said, quote, Rania Matar created a safe space for me to celebrate my gender freely. And her eagerness to uplift folks with nuanced identities, especially among the diasporic Middle Eastern Arab community, is a special thing, end of quote. So you see here by Cyrus posting, you can see their right hand kind of holding himself, there resting on his left shoulder. There's a lot of confidence that they exude, but at the same time, I'm thinking it's great vulnerability, right? Is putting yourself out there for the world in a beautiful way, captured by Rania, with unparalleled attention to nuance and beauty. So before I go to your questions and comments, here are some ways that you can engage with our exhibition. You can read more about the artists and the process to capture these stories in the exhibition booklet, which is available in our exhibition, in our museum store, which you can see here on the left. The booklet includes an interview with Rania, and it reproduces each of the 27 images that are included in the exhibition. You can take a virtual 360 tour of the exhibition on our website. You can see here the bird's eye view of our gallery with all 27 photographs. Of course, you can visit the exhibition in person. We have reserved free time tickets. Admission is always free. You can reserve your time tickets at rollins.edu/CFAM. And you should save the date for Rania's Artist Talk, which is coming up on May 23rd at 6 p.m. here on Facebook Live, and she'll be taking questions also from the audience. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and take any questions that you may have. Let me know if you have any questions or comments. I have one question that a friend sent me about why 27 photographs. And I just wanted to say that I think I mentioned there are many more in this series that Rania has captured. And we looked at dozens and dozens of photographs together. It was very difficult to narrow down the selections, but we decided we wanted to have enough works in the gallery to give the visitor a sense for the project, but also allow each image to have enough space to breathe, as we say in our installations, right? So that it wasn't necessarily an overwhelming amount of photographs. So we ended up with 27. There are two sizes of images in the exhibition. Any other questions or comments? Did you have a favorite of the ones that we looked at today, one that spoke to you more? I find it hard to pick a favorite. I think they're all engaging in different ways. And I think, you know, some of them I look at and I can relate to some of the stories, and I think about what the stories may be in others where I don't know all the details. And I think that's one of the amazing things of this project and of these works, is that it encourages to imagine, right, and to put ourselves in other people's shoes and think about how others have experienced this. I'll be happy to take any questions if there's anything you would like to know about how we put the exhibition together. Any other questions or comments about the exhibition? Okay, well, I want to thank you all for joining us this morning, and for walking through Rania Matar on either side of the window, portraits during COVID-19. And I hope you join us for our next virtual event coming up soon. Make sure you check our social media and our website, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.